We're starting the Ezra Hashem Siman Samachay of Maamar Shevuos, and the subject is the binyan based on Mikdash on Yom Tov that we had before. That the Rashi and Tosfos and Masechta Sukkah say that it could be that the base Mikdash will come down from Shemayim on Yom Tov. And the question is, but before it comes down from Shemayim, there has to be some kind of binyan b'dei Adam. Like the Orthodox asks that we know that Mashiach is going to build it. So the question is, how could Mashiach build it if it's Yom Tov? So we had the Orthodox answer was, just to review, that Tosfos and Shabbos Daf Tzadikei says that binyan b'Yom Tov is really mutter, because binyan b'Yom Tov is mutter for the sake of making cheese. So we say mitoich shutu l'tzorech, and we say it's mutter for all tzrachim. The problem with that was that there are other Rishonim who don't paskin like Tosfos, first of all, and even in Tosfos, it's mashma. He's saying in both Mandi Amrim there in the Gemara, so it's going to come out a problem that we're not going to have a pshat in the other Gemara in Shevuos Daf Tesvav that says that ein binyan based on Mikdash Toich Yom Tov. So to answer this, he brought down the Pnei Yeshua, Samach Gimel. He brought the Pnei Yeshua that said that the way to learn the Rambam is, the Rambam holds that the building on Yom Tov is also midiraisa. The Rambam will hold because making cheese is not a raya, because making cheese is a temporary thing. What cheese are you allowed to make on Yom Tov? Only the temporary cheese, the cheese that you eat for today. But cheese that you keep for permanent use, for long-term use, you're not allowed to make on Yom Tov. So therefore, binyan for long-term is aser. Binyan for short-term, binyan l'shah, is mutter. Okay? Now we had the Chassam Sofer who brought that there's a machlokes in the Yerushalmi about this, and the Chassam Sofer paskins that it's mutter to build short-term. So let's go back to the subject. According to this Chassam Sofer, shehichriya lahalacha, who paskins the binyan l'shah lo yavi binyan, that building temporary is not called binyan. Okay. Svaras ha'pnei Yeshua muchrachas. According to that, we can say like the Pnei Yeshua, the asiyas gvina le'echol la'alter, the making cheese to eat for now, just for today, lo yavi klal binyan. It's temporary binyan, so it's not binyan. V'lo shaykh b'zeh lo yamar mitoich. And therefore, you can't say mitoich to be matir building permanently. No, your mitoich could only be matir at the most building a temporary structure. V'shap because of a Rambam the boy nechayev. That's why the Rambam says if you build a permanent structure, you're chayev. Ela de lefi masha chasavnu she'ein lanu achra. However, the Rebbe came out in Siman Samach Daled that he's not so sure about the Chassam Sofer's raya. The Chassam Sofer brought two rayas, and he spent a long time showing that they're not rayas. So we don't know for sure, but Plutus Yerushalmi, we don't know who he paskin like Bozeh. So Efshaloi Mar Shezeh Udasa Tosfos. It could be that Tosfos is like that. Tosfos holds that we're not sure who the paskin like in this machlokes. So therefore, Shebekushiyasam Sham Shabbos Daf Tzadikei Amud Aleph Dibur Maskel V'Haroide Tosfos and Tzadikei Sheyiyeh Mutter Livnois Based on Yom Tov. Tosfos says you should be allowed to build your house on Yom Tov. Simu Tosfos ends off Uvilvad Sheyiyeh Tzorech Hayoim Lechol B'Soichei Shel Yaken Shar V'Shemesh. That it's only allowed to build your house on Yom Tov if it's for a Tzorech Hayoim, for the purpose of today. So you should be able to eat in the house.
Well, we don't pass in this way.
No, we don't.
We don't even build a sukkah on sukkahs.
We pass like the Rambam, that you can't build any permanent structure on Yom Tov. And even a temporary structure...
Sukkahs temporary, you still not take off until after sukkahs.
Yeah, that's called a permanent structure. Yeah. A temporary structure, you're allowed to build midaraisa, not midarabanan. So like, let's say a shlak on a sukkah is really derabanan, but if you started out before, then it's not even derabanan. It's mutar l'chachila to put the shlak up. Okay? So... Shebekushiyasam Sham, that Tosfos in the Kasha there holds that he says that you should be allowed to build your house on Yom Tov in order to sit in it from the sun, Shal Yaken Shar V'Shemesh, in order to not get beaten by the sun and the heat. We don't understand. If Tosfos is coming, what he's doing now is he's trying to make Tosfos and the Rambam the same shita here. He's saying there's no machlokes. So he's saying like this: if Tosfos is really arguing on the Rambam and holding that building your house on Yom Tov is completely mutter for all purposes, you could build a 10-story building on Yom Tov. So then why does Tosfos say this thing about Shar V'Shemesh? Why does he say that you can only build it to keep yourself safe from the sun? Ain't a moving a lashon. Sheherich lefaret. Tosfos goes on and makes examples of what you could build a house for. I need to have reasons to build a house. There are plenty of reasons to build a house. It's to eat there, not to get beaten by the heat. There's many reasons why a person builds a house. So why does Tosfos specify these three reasons? Even Tosfos agrees that you can't just build a house to just the regular binyan. A permanent building. For that you can't use the heter of mitoich from cheese. Because Tosfos knew what the Pnei Yeshua says, that cheese is only temporary. So you're only allowed to make temporary cheese. So you're only allowed to make a temporary building. So you can't make a permanent building. Therefore, Tosfos only agrees to permit it for something that's not going to last permanently. Just a place to eat on Yom Tov there, like a tent. So, but a sukkah that's just temporary, that's what Tosfos meant. That's a temporary building. So now we have the Mimanashach. We say, no matter what you say, it's going to be
mutter. What does Mimanashach mean?
It says no matter what. In other words, whether you learn this way, you learn that way. We're going to say it like this, that if you learn that we say mitoich from the cheese, and we learn that binyan l'shah is not binyan, right? Then it's mutter. If you hold binyan l'shah is binyan, then it's weiter mutter. So because binyan l'shah is binyan, but this is also binyan l'shah.
So according to this reading, you can make cottage cheese, which you can make on the same day on Yom Tov, but you're not allowed to make a cheese which takes like a few days or a few weeks to make.
Right.
So is that the case that every gulumais make cottage on Yom Tov?
I think so.
All right.
Okay, so v'havei zeh gam kein binyan l'shah. No matter what you say, it's going to be mutter. The im halacha command the Maamar the binyan l'shah loy havi binyan. If you're going to paskin like the shita that binyan temporary building is not a building, b'lavachi mutter. Then it's anyway mutter to build this temporary structure. What are you going to say that you have to be worried? The even temporary building is a building, like the Rabbi said in Siman that he's not sure which side of the Yerushalmi to paskin like. So on that, Tosfos says, Lachein kasem mitam mitoich. That's why he says mitoich, that you make cheese, and this is also like making cheese. The im kein mimanashach mutter. The im binyan l'shah havi binyan. Again, he speaks it out. If temporary buildings are binyan, havi gamasiyas gvina l'yoyma binyan. So then, making cheese for today is also a building. V'shuv mutter mitam mitoich, and therefore it's mutter to build the house for mitoich. And according to this side, you can build any house. But we're not sure the passing like this time. So Tosfos says, why taka can't you build a temporary structure? And Tosfos answers, the midrabanan aser, kol minei binyan. Any kind of binyan, af b'chai gavna, even a temporary she'ein el l'shah. V'im kein loy kasha midi migemar Shevuos. So now it's not shver from the Gemara and Shevuos on Tosfos. And this is the climax here, this is the punchline. The Gemara and Shevuos said, the binyan based on mikdash on Yom Tov is aser. Shebinyan based on mikdash eino doich Yom Tov. The Sham Mairing Mibinyan based on Mikdash Shebabatim Harishonim. There it's talking about the first two Batim Mikdashes. The first one of Shlomo Melech and the second one of Ezra. Shahaya Binyan Kavua Al Kama Shanim. That the building lasted for hundreds of years. The Nimsa, the Ladina, so he's saying like this. In other words, temporary structures are mutter. Permanent structures are aser. So the base of Mikdash of the first and the second was a permanent structure. That's why it was aser. Mashenk in the future base of Mikdash, what he's going to say is, it takes him a while to say it, but what he's going to say is the future base of Mikdash is a temporary structure. Because we're going to build it, and then a minute later it's going to come down from Shemaim. So it comes out, it's only a temporary structure. Okay?
In regards to what, could we build a Yom Tov, the base of the third base of Mikdash?
Right. That's what he's going to say.
Yeah.
So, V'nimsa de ladina loy pligi bozeh Tosfos im Rambam. Tosfos and the Rambam don't really argue. The Tosfos ma'iri mibinyan kozeh she'einu el lechol sham tzorich hayoim. Tosfos is talking about a thing that you're only going to use for today. The Rambam ma'iri mistam binyan kederech binyan b'kviyas. The Rambam is talking about a permanent building.
And I forget, what was the Gemara that said that the base of Yom Tov, and Rashi said that...
Right, it's Sukkah Daf Mem Aleph.
Just remind me, what the Gemara say?
The Gemara is talking about bringing the korban ha'omer, and it says that we were allowed to eat chadash only at the end of the day, because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made a takana. He was afraid that the base of Mikdash would get built, and people wouldn't have time to bring the Korban Omer until late in the day. And when would the Beis Hamikdash get built? On the first day, let's say first day of Pesach, and on the second day of Pesach, until they bring the Korban Omer, it's going to be late in the day, and Jews will be eating the Chodesh, so therefore he was misaking not to eat Chodesh the whole day.
Alright, so he decreed until the 17th of Nisan.
Until the end of the 16th day of Nisan, you can't eat Chodesh.
Right, for those who are Machpir and Chutzlar, as they wait till the 18th.
Right, because we have Shveicha de Yoima. Okay, so Umeato lefi zeh miyushavin divrei Rashi v'Tosfos. So now we understand Rashi and Tosfos, Ushar Rishonim, other Rishonim there, Shekasfu the binyan ha'asid efsher b'yamtiv. That they say that the third Beis Hamikdash might get built on Yom Tov. And Rashi answers, how could that be? Because it's already built in Shemaim and it's going to come down. We see in many places, like the Aruch LaNer brings down, that there's going to be a building by human hands before it comes down from Shemaim. So the answer is the kivan de lefi mashen isbar l'mayla. According to what we said before, Yavoi takef acharkach habayis abanu meshuchla. That Beis Hamikdash from heaven is going to come down right away. Milmala v'isbatu l'metzias oisei abinyan. And the previous building that was built, Shabban b'nei Adam, that people built, is going to come. It's going to disappear. So Shuv loy havi al abinyan l'shah. Comes out that what people built was only a temporary building. V'yein bo yister deraisa, and that's why there's no yister deraisa, and it's a derabanan, and for the Beis Hamikdash were matir. That's why this is not similar to the first two Bati Mikdashes. The EF Shalivnois B'Yamtiv Dehavi Binyan Kavua. That's what Rashi and Tosfos, the Rishonim, say that this is not similar. Shapir Kosfu, they write that this is not similar to the first two Bati Mikdashes because those two were built by human hands and stayed that way. And this one's built by human hands but it disappears. The future, the permanent building is only going to be what comes down from Shemaim. So when they're building this temporary one, they're only going to think about temporary use. They're not going to think about kiyum, about permanence. That's why the pasuk doesn't mention it when it says Mikdash Hashem kohen yadecha. The hands of Hashem built the Beis Hamikdash. It doesn't mention the human hands. Why? Because right after the human hands build it, we're only going to have the Beis Hamikdash from Shemaim, and therefore it's allowed, like Tosfos said, to build the Beis Hamikdash that's temporary. Okay? That's the end of that teretz. Now, new teretz. We can say another teretz, but pshitas yoiser. It's more simple. That Yosef, when he was in charge of the jail in Egypt, he gave the orders and everybody did what he said. Right? Everything that was done there, he did it. That's the pasuk in Parshas Vayeshev. It's not that Yosef did it; it's by his word it was done. It can't be that Yosef himself did all the work. That's not a praise. That doesn't show Yosef's greatness because, it shows
he's doing his job as a prison warden.
Right, a prison warden sounds like he's a big, the director of the prison. He's giving orders. If you say he was just sweeping the floor and cleaning the toilets, that's not a shvach. It's not even possible for him to do all the work. But Elamai, the pshat must be that since Yosef gave the commands, so the Torah says that he's doing it. So you see a yesod from here that when someone gives a command for something to be done, it's as if he did it. Okay? The same thing is stated by the Psikta, that if you learn about the halachas of the Beis Hamikdash, it's as if you're building it.
And Kiyuv is a hidden reality, so you're definitely building the hidden part of it.
So according to this we can say even if you're going to say like those places that are mashma that the Mashiach himself will build the Beis Hamikdash, It doesn't mean that he's going to get up and put the bricks down. That it will be built through his words. What does that mean? That Mashiach is going to daven, and with those prayers that he says, there's going to be an influence that the Beis Hamikdash will come down from Shemaim. That we say in Nachem, we say that Hashem will build the Beis Hamikdash in fire, and that's this idea of the Beis Hamikdash coming down from Shemaim. It's mamish part of our davening. So we take on like that side, and the Mashiach building it just means he'll speak and it will be built. Okay, that it says that the Kohanim bench the Yidden, and then it says Hashem says I'll bless them. What does that mean? In Keimlama Hutzruchu Levirchis Kohanim, the Chazal say, what do we need the Birchis Kohanim for? El Shal Yidei Oista HaBracha She'on Ma Kohanim, because the Kohanim say the bracha, Nimshecha HaBracha Milmalam Sha'Kodesh Baruch Hu B'Atzmo Mevorachis Yisrael. The bracha comes down that Hashem blesses the Yidden. So it's not that the Kohanim bless the Yidden, the Kohanim ask Hashem to do it, and it's considered like they do it because they're making Hashem do it.
Any king commands like the king did it.
Right. So we say that this king built that, this king built that. It's always said that way. Okay, that things that happen from Shemaim happen through the avodah of a tzaddik down below. That the Rebbe brought earlier, Siman Nun Gimel, when he was talking about Ben Koziva, that there was a mystere there, that whether Mashiach, whether this false Mashiach Ben Koziva was killed by the Romans, or by a snake, or by Chazal. Right? The Gemara in the Bavli Daf Tzadi Gimel, Sanhedrin Daf Tzadi Gimel says that the Chachamim killed him. So Rebbe said in Siman Nun Gimel that Sha'am Rizal the Katlu Rabbanan, the Rabbanan killed him. After the Emes Loi Katlu Rabbanan, even though we see in the Yerushalmi,
he'd fight back and kill them all out if they tried to. If we thought he was able to throw pins and kill kill soldiers.
But if the Chacham had Yisiyat Dishmai and they paskin that he's Chayim Misa, they would. Okay, but the problem is that the Yerushalmi says that it wasn't the Chacham, it was a snake, right? Loi Katlu Rabbanan be a dime. Ela Shal Umoist Oyanachash Katlu. It was either the Romans or it was a snake. El Yan Shahaya Kain Midas HaChachamim. Since the Chachamim wanted it to happen, they paskin on him that he was Chayim Misa. V'haya Hashpas Koicham Bazeh. They had a koich to influence it. Nikra Kain Alashin Tekotelu Rabbanan. It's considered like the Rabbanan killed him. Now we can answer up the contradiction. Even though Rashi and Tosfos say that it's going to come down from Shemaim, that's for sure true. No one's going to do any malacha. Right? It's Yom Tov. They're not allowed to do it. That's for sure true. Those places where it sounds like the Mashiach will do it, it means with his speech he'll do it. On Yom Tov he'll get up and he'll say the tefillas and it will come down. It could be the Rambam also meant that, even though the Rambam in Hilchos Malachim says the Mashiach will build it, he also meant that. He just didn't explain it at length. Because the Rambam holds that we don't say what's going to happen after Mashiach comes in too much detail. The things are very unclear. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, so it's not good to be marich too much about the details.
It wasn't the way of the Rambam to delve into the deep things.
Right. He just brings down the statement of Chazal, B'derech Klal Sha'amelech HaMashiach Yivneh Beis HaMikdash. There's no difference whether he's going to do it by action or by words, or by thoughts. It's still called that he built it. By the way, so I have a problem here, which I mentioned to you before, that if the Beis HaMikdash is not going to be built directly by Mashiach, so how is this a criterion? How is this a test to show that he's Mashiach? The Rambam is mashma that if he does these things, builds the Beis HaMikdash and gathers Nichei Yisrael, then that proves he's Mashiach.
But first we have to
So if the Beis HaMikdash is going to come down from Shemaim, so anybody could just get up and claim, I made it happen with my tefillah.
But you can find out if he has a previous sign, so just smell and judge.
Yeah, that's true. The other signs are still good, but this sign, I'm saying...
And I'm sure he'll be able to tell who's telling the truth. If somebody lying, he'll be able to show he's a liar.
He'll be able to tell, but how are we...
He can show he's a liar.
How are we, Klal Yisrael, going to tell whether let's say you have two possible... candidates for Mashiach, and each one says, I made it happen. But how are you going to know who the real one is? So maybe the pshat is, like you said, that maybe that Mashiach will have to daven right at that second when it comes down.
Yes.
So everyone will see that it's him. Okay. Uvatana devei Eliyahu, Seder Eliyahu, Rabbi Parsha Lamed. Sefer Tana devei Eliyahu, from Eliyahu Navi. Cost of Ezel L'Shoinai. Kav Yachol Ein Beis HaMikdash Nivne Biyad Adam. The Beis HaMikdash is not going to be built by human hands. El biyado shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu bilvad, only by Hashem. Shenemar Mikdash Hashem Kohen Yudecha. So this is another source to chalk up on the side of that Zohar that we brought before, that it will only be built by Hashem. And it says in another pasuk, Noira Elokim mi Mikdashecha, that Hashem is awesome from His temples. What are the temples? Lashon Rabbim, plural, right? Pirish Shama is cooking the Pirish on the side of the Tana devei Eliyahu says the Koyal base Shloimeh. It's going back on the first base in Mikdash that was built by Shlomo Melech. The Af shebenoi al yidei bnei Adam, even though he built it with human hands, mikomakum le nivne ela al yidei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even that temple was only built by Hashem. That's interesting. It's going a step further than the Zohar and everything else. He's saying not only the future base in Mikdash, but even the first base in Mikdash was also only built by Hashem. And how could that be? Ki ha'avanim alu me'leihem, because the stones went up on their own. Al abinyan. Interesting. He's saying it was like a miraculous thing. They built the stones and then they left them on the ground and they went up onto their places by themselves.
Well, in order to prove to what I'm saying, there's no currently way of building the coast the way it is.
Oh, he's going to say that.
Further, you had to, in fact, miraculously build because there was no metal allowed to build the base of Mikdash, even the second one. So therefore, it wasn't right that you had the Shamir, a little warrior that was able to cut through stone. No one could do that, but that was...
Yeah, but in the second base of Mikdash, they didn't use the Shamir.
What are they using? Metal?
They used metal, yeah.
Really?
So outside, you're allowed to use metal, and then you bring it in.
Sholomel, people use Shamir, for the first one. But isn't there an issue to build a base with metal even for the second one?
Inside, you're not allowed to cut the stones inside the base of Mikdash with metal, but outside you're allowed to build it and then bring it in. That's it. I showed you Gemara and Talmud, I think. Gemara and Talmud, at the beginning of Masechta Talmud, it says that you build outside and bring it in. Well, that's a machlokes. It could be that you only use the shamir for the stones of the ephod and the choshen. Okay. Or maybe after he brought the stones inside, then he had to cut them more, and then he used the shamir. But when it was outside, he was allowed to.
I see.
Okay. Anyway, b'mishkan hukam me'elav. It says by the Mishkan that Moshe couldn't lift it up, and Hashem made it go up. So the same thing over here. The hevi al zeh rayas midivrei chazal yuin sham. This cooking brings rayas, brings proofs that this is the case. He says that's by the first base of Mikdash that he's machadish this thing that it came from Shemaim, but that's not so pasha. Not everybody agrees to that. But by the third one, everybody agrees that it's going to come from Shemaim, b'li shum pu'ulas b'nei Adam, without any human effort. Klal u'kumoishehu b'zoyar hakadosh the yesh chiluk. He says the Zohar says the difference. The b'ayis rishon haya al kapanim gam pu'ulas b'nei Adam. There was at least some human involvement.
So b'ayis rishon, the stones would move up.
Well, according to the Tana devei Eliyahu, yeah.
Because it wasn't a natural building for sure. For sure, it was high. It was above it. You couldn't construct it like an ordinary building.
Okay, v'loy kain b'bayis delosti. It's not going to be like that in the future base of Mikdash. Ela kimas v'sayim havi ma'isa. Just the moving of the lips is enough of a ma'isa to make it happen. V'yomru chazal b'gemara tamura daf gimel on the base. Loy tisni miyamer mishum debedibur asa ma'isa. That they're talking about the klal of lav she'ein boy ma'isa ein loikin alav. The klal that if you do a negative commandment that doesn't have an action, you don't get malchus.
Yeah.
Usually. And the Gemara says three exceptions.
They are
Nishba, saying the false shvua,
okay,
and miyamer, making tmura, which is switching the kedusha of one korban onto another, and the third one is mekalel, cursing somebody, which is also not an action. It's just a statement.
For cursing somebody, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So then the Gemara says, Loi tisni, don't include miyamer in the list. Don't include tmura in the list because that's considered a ma'isa. Because even though it's only a word that you say out of your mouth, zeh tach zeh, but because of your words, the holiness goes off of one animal and goes on to the other, so it really both of them become holy, because it says V'hayahu is miraso yakodesh. But l'maisa, you're making something move from one to the other, so it's considered a maisa. So that's not considered just dibur. Mekalel, cursing, and nishba and swearing are not a maisa at all. We see from this Gemara that when his words make something happen, it comes out that the words are a maisa. So the same thing we'll say here, that when Melech HaMashiach gets up and he says, he davens for the Beis HaMikdash to come down, and it comes down, his very holy tefillah, something happens, that the Beis HaMikdash that's completely built comes down. It comes out that he's the one doing it. Even though he doesn't do any action, nothing at all. This answers up all the places. After I wrote all this, Niskarti, I remembered, Masha Hevi Amaram Chagiz. This is an interesting story that a gadol in Yerushalayim, his name was Rabbi Moshe Chagiz, he lived in the 1700s.
What's Chagiz stand for? Oh, last name, right, last name.
I guess that was his last name, yeah. Rabbi Moshe Chagiz, I think he lived in the 1700s, early 1700s, and the sefer that we're about to read from was published in the year 1732. Okay? So let's listen to the story that he brings down here. About the building of the Beis HaMikdash. I decided to copy over some of his words. In the sefer called Elamase Daf Yutes, after he brings down the story at length, that the western wall, and the place of the Beis HaMikdash, the stone up there, the under the dome of the rock, that stone, it was covered with garbage, meruba, a lot of garbage, shehutal sham, that was placed there, bifkudas haroimim, by the command of the Romans. And we're going to look inside. We're going to soon get the historical context of the story. So the garbage was placed there by the command of the Romans, because they didn't want people to know about this Beis HaMikdash. They were trying to hide it. Okay, then along came a new king, Malchus Shel Chesed, of a kind kingdom.
Of Rome?
No.
Or a different Malchus?
He's going to say it was an Arab king. We're going to see who it is in a minute. Okay? Shapizer Hoin Rav, that he spent a lot of money with Staliko Ashpa to get the garbage off. Ad Shegilo Esakoisel Amaravi, until he revealed the western wall. The Hayesoidis, and also the foundations of the Beis HaMikdash, Hanirim Hayoim, which are visible today, Le'en Kol, by everybody's eye. The Nasan covered Gadol L'Makom HaMikdash, and he gave a lot of respect to this place. V'kara Achar Kach Es HaYehudim, and he brought over the Jews, and he called them over, and he said, V'dibra Al Libam, and he spoke to their hearts, and he said, V'emor, and he said, Hinei Me'es Hashem Ha'is Azois. Obviously, Hashem helped me to conquer this place. Ushma Garam, my name helped, or Hashem helped, Lahachzir Ateres Habayis Liyoshna, to return the glory of this house to its old state. V'harei hayesoidis lifnechem, he said, here's the foundations of the temple. Benu Isa, build it up. Al Hoitzah Shali, with my money, I'll pay for it. V'al tashkichu b'Hoitzah, doesn't matter how much it costs. Hayehudim nishbar libam b'kirbam. The Jews' hearts were broken. They all cried and they didn't answer. So Amar Melech, the king asked them, Why are you crying? You should have been happy. Hashem sent me for your own good, for your benefit. To build up his temple. That the Romans destroyed. If you're worried about the money, it's at my expense that you're going to build it. So on one old Jew answered back with great crying, he said, long live the king, we are your servants, we have to thank Hashem, who gave you this beautiful counsel. We have to thank you that your kindness, that's even better than the first kindness, that you cleared away the garbage, that you're offering to pay for the Beis Hamikdash. According to our beliefs, we don't have permission to build this Beis Hamikdash. That we believe that this Beis Hamikdash is going to get built from Hashem, by Hashem, min hashamayim. It's going to come down from the sky, whenever Hashem wants, and not before that. Okay? The king said, Im kain, ani yadati, ki Shlomo HaMelech hispal gam l'nachri. That Shlomo HaMelech, when he built the Beis Hamikdash, he said a tefillah, it's in Sefer Malachim, that this place will be not only for Jews, it will be for Goyim too, that when a Goy comes and he wants to ask Hashem for something, he'll come to this Beis Hamikdash and daven for it.
Goy was not to bring in Ola.
Right, in Ola. So, the Goy will daven in this Beis Hamikdash. That his prayers will be more heard in this Beis Hamikdash. So the king said, so you don't want to build the Beis Hamikdash, I'll make it a makom, I'll make it like a place of prayer for myself. I'll build it. I'll make it for my house of prayer. And you let the Yidden go. Ad kan l'shaynai. You and Sham see there sheherich, that he goes on at length.
What sefer?
Now this is Sefer Eilamasi. It's very interesting to see the details of this story and when it happened. He says like this: "V'kach yashmur sheshamati mipi hamulumadim shebohen." Says, here's the story that I heard from the learned Arabs, hamulumadim shebohen, the learned people of the Muslims. V'habakim b'divrei yomim, those who know the history. Shal Malchus Uthman, of the Ottoman Empire. Okay, so he's talking about the history. He's 1732, and he's talking about the history when the Ottoman Empire came to Jerusalem. Shehema Turkin, they're the Turks. Shahaya Toichin Gadol Beineim, the Shalosh Meir Shanim Kodim Shekavash HaKezer Salim Nishmasta Eden Esoir. That there was an astronomer among the Turks 300 years before the Sultan Salim conquered the city. Shehema Misaprim, they tell when Salim conquered this place, that he chose the Lishkas Agazis, the place where the original Sanhedrin used to sit in the Beis Hamikdash. He chose that for his palace. That's where the Muslims have their court today. So Yom Echad Ra Der Chaloin Isha Goya Zekena Yoisem Tishim Shana Shahaisem Via Saklei Kupa, that he looked out his window and he saw a non-Jewish lady throwing her garbage onto this place. Yeah, Shalzevu Mashlechas Sham B'Makom Samach V'Nir L'Lishka Shalai, that was outside the king's window. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. He got angry at her and he said, "Why are you throwing garbage outside my window?" And she said, "The Romans told me to do so." And then he checked it up and he found it was true.
The Romans were gone already.
Oh, so the Romans, what are the Romans doing in the time of Salim in 1570?
They were long gone. The Roman Empire fell in 476 CE.
Listen, you're going to see the answer to that soon. So then he goes on, page 4 now, I'm on page 4 of the Maamar sheets, that he basically scattered money on there. He says, the top line of page 4, he threw some money down onto the garbage dump, that the poor people should jump on it, to get the money, and then he commanded everybody to do it, and it says he had like 10,000 people working every day, clearing it away. Ayin Sham, take a look, you read the story, it's very interesting. When did this happen? So, number one, it can't be Salim. Salim was traveling around the Middle East conquering it. Number two, what's this thing that he gave the Yidden permission to build the Beis Hamikdash? Do you believe that any Ottoman emperor would give, after the Dome of the Rock was standing, the Dome of the Rock was built in 691, right? Do you think that any Ottoman emperor would give the permission for the Jews to build the Beis Hamikdash, to knock down their things and build it? Doesn't make any sense. And secondly, the story ends off, and the story says that the king himself built it after the Yidden refused to build it, right? So obviously this story is talking way before Salim. This is an old story that the Maram Chagiz heard from the old Muslims, and he mixed it up with Salim. But really, this is talking about the Caliph Umar. know Muslim history, just let me finish, okay? After Muhammad died, his father-in-law took over, Abu Bakr, and then after him, the second caliph was named Omar al-Kitab. Omar al-Kitab was the one who really took over the Middle East and made the first caliphate. And he went to Yerushalayim in the year 637. And I have here copied off a little information from Wikipedia about him. He came to Yerushalayim in the year 637, and he came with this Jewish convert to Islam named Ka'b al-Akhbar. He says he was a Jewish rabbi who moved from Yemen, and he converted to Islam, and he accompanied the Caliph Umar on his voyage to Jerusalem.
What's a caliph?
The Caliph is a king of the Muslims.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Like the Pope for the Catholics, kind of?
Yeah, but it's not so religious. It's more like a political leader.
Because the Pope does have political power, too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe by the Muslims it's kind of combined into one. Uh-huh. So this Jew who was a convert to Islam came along with Umar when he went to Yerushalayim, and it is reported, listen to this, that when Umar marched into Jerusalem with an army, he asked this Jew, "Where do you advise me to build a place of worship?" Ka'b indicated the Temple Rock, now a gigantic heap of ruins from the Temple of Jupiter. That he said, "Look, this is the rock, the Evan Shasiya, the rock that's today under the dome of the rock." He said that rock is the place where you should build it, because he was a Jew. He knew, right? The Jews, Ka'b explained, had briefly won back their old capital a quarter of a century before, when the Persians overran Syria and Palestine, but they had not had time to clear the site of the temple. For the Romans, the Byzantines, had recaptured the city. Right? It was then that Umar ordered the rubbish on the Sakhra, the rock, to be removed by the Nabateans, and after 3 showers of heavy rain, it's the people that live in Saudi Arabia. Uh-huh. So he ordered them to remove the garbage, and after 3 showers of heavy rain had cleansed the rock, he instituted prayers there. So Umar came, right, but he didn't build anything over it. He just made a place of prayer. He cleared off the garbage. It says clear, mamish like the Maram Chagi's story. He cleared off the garbage from the Makam HaMikdash and the temple and the Kaisel Maravi, and he let the Yidden come back. If you look down a little further down, it brings down some more Marmakoimis here. Umar ordered the Gentiles and a group of Jews to sweep the area of the Temple Mount. Umar oversaw the work. The Jews who had come sent letters to the rest of the Jews in Palestine and informed them that Umar had permitted resettlement of the Jerusalem by Jews. Umar, after some consultation, permitted 70 Jewish households to return. He let them come to live in Yerushalayim, basically. Okay? And then down here, if you want to understand why the Maram Chagi says that the Romans were the ones who ordered the garbage put there, he says very clearly. He says that the Alexandrian bishop said that this rock was a place of ruins, going back to the time of the Empress Helene, the mother of Constantine the Great. Right? He says the Byzantines had deliberately left the ancient site of the temple as it was, and they had even thrown rubbish on it. They didn't build anything on the temple after they conquered it. The Byzantines are the Roman Empire. They're the eastern half of the Roman Empire. So that's these Romans that we're talking about. They deliberately thrown rubbish on it so that a great heap of rubble formed. It was only when Umar marched into Jerusalem with an army that he asked Ka'b, who was Jewish, before he converted to Islam, "Where do you advise me to build a place of worship?" And then the whole story again. So B'Kitzur, it's clear that this Omar is the one that the Maram Chagiz is talking about when he says that he gave permission to the Yidden to build the Beis HaMikdash, and eventually he built his own house of prayer in that place. And by the way, it's very interesting that the Rebbe in Vayoel Moshe doesn't say, when he quotes the Maram Chagiz, he doesn't say which king it is. The Maram Chagiz does say, he says Salim. But obviously the Rebbe also was a little bit chosh that this is not the correct historical information, so he doesn't go into the exact name of the king. He just says the story that there was a Malchus Shel Chesed that came and offered to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. Now back to Vayoel Moshe. He says, "Yu'uyin sham sheherich v'kasav achar kach taimim lama asr livnois." The Maram Chagiz says afterwards reasons why it is asr to build the Beis HaMikdash bisman hazeh. Ulepela shaloi hevi divrei Rambam ve'atois v'syamtiv she'yef shel livnois. That it's unbelievable why he doesn't bring down the Rambam and the Tosfos Yomtiv who say that it's also to build Beis HaMikdash nowadays because we don't have the exact halachas how to build it. They were lost. They were deliberately not given over to us. So let's take a look here on page 8 of the Maram Kohen sheets, where I have the continuation of this Maram Chagiz. He says like this, in the paragraph starting Ho'ir. Ho'ir hi gedoyla umeruba boichlaisin. The city of Yerushalayim is a very big city with lots of people. He's talking in his time, the 1700s. V'yesham mikol uma v'lashon. And there are many people from all different nations in the world there. L'roiv. Omnam yad haTorgamim hi hatakifa. The hand of the Turks is what's in power. Machmas haKezer shebe Constantina. Because of the Sultan of Turkey, who lives in Constantinople, Ki hu asher kava sho'ir v'chol Eretz Yisrael miyad malchus roimi. For he is the one who conquered the city and the entire Eretz Yisrael from the Roman Empire. A little bit mixed up of the history here, because he didn't conquer it from the Roman Empire. Selim, the Turkish Ottoman emperor of the 1500s, conquered it from the Mamluks, who were Muslims ruling from Egypt. And what he really means is Omar conquered it from the Byzantines, who were Romans, who were Christians. The Oisoi Shekava Shoir, and that king who conquered the city, like we said, Omar, Gila Makom HaMikdash, he revealed the place of the Mikdash Ve'ayesoidis, V'yisnadiv Liyehudim Shahayisham Livnois Lahem HaMikdash Al Hoitzoisav. He offered the Jews the chance to build the base of Mikdash, Kanizkar Le'el, Omnam Kasher Aleinu Mitam Heyoseinu Tmei Mesim. Now he says the reasons. Because we were Tamei Mes, we couldn't build the base of Mikdash. Ukamasha Kosev Rambam Zal, the Rambam says that we're all Tmei Mesim, that's why we can't do it. I don't know what Rambam means, but this is what the Rabbi means, that he brings reasons. That Tmei Mesim is a reason not to build the base of Mikdash. Of course, you can bring Karbonis to Mahutra B'tzibur, but you can't build anything, you can't go in there and build anything. Gam, another reason, he says, Mitam Genizas Ha'arain, because the Aron was hidden, Sheboy Luchos, which contains the Luchos, Nes Arlanu. It was forbidden for us to build a base of Mikdash. The third base of Mikdash has to have the Aron in it. And since the Aron is hidden, we don't know where it is, we can't build the third base of Mikdash. So Heshivu Lai, that's why the Jews answered this king, She'ein B'Rishus Yisrael Livnoisei Ad Shiyu Nigalim, that the Jews have no right to build it until they get redeemed. The Maamar Chagiz says two reasons basically why you're not allowed to build the base of Mikdash b'zman hazeh. One is the Tumah, and the other is because of the Aron being missing. But the Rabbi says that really he should have said the Rambam and Tosfos Yontif say that we don't even have the instructions how to build it. We don't even have a Messiah, how it's supposed to look. Alright. In any case, on Uroim me'amaisa, we see in this story of the Maamar Chagiz, Shahaya b'chia gedoyla b'Yisrael, that the Jews cried tremendously when the king told them to build the base of Mikdash. That in the time of Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, when Adrianus, the emperor of Rome, told them to build the base of Mikdash, they called that Gzeira also. And he explained why, because Gzeira is something bad, and it was considered a bad thing if you have to build the base of Mikdash, and it's not the time yet, it's not the Geula, even though the king could be guys such a thing, but we're not so happy about it, because there's going to be jealousy, and the nations are going to fight against us because of it. So that could be the same reason why the Yidden were crying in this story. Why were they crying so much? It's because they were afraid of the king. If they weren't going to do what he said, they were afraid what might happen. But nevertheless, they risked their lives to tell the king that they're not allowed to build it. After the Mishnah and the Talmud were completed, and this information was left out of them, it's impossible to build the base of Mikdash until Eliyahu and Mashiach come and tell us how to do it. But before the time of Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, it was possible. They still had the Messiah. Now, we don't have the Messiah and we can't do it. And that's why they refused to do it.